Hello, welcome to Scrapbooking Station. This is a quick card video. So I've got a card that was inspired from or we're going to be creating a card that was inspired from a Webisode. So this was created from a card kit, but we're going to be starting from scratch. So I'm going to put the camera over my shoulder and we'll get started. So this is the look I want for the card that I'm going to be creating. And this comes from, like I said, a Webisode Paper Wishes for Romantic Butterflies Artist's Card Kit. And so they've got die-cut toppers and, of course, coordinating papers and little sentiments. So we're going to be doing all that from scratch. So first off, I'm going to pick out some pattern papers. So I've got back behind here the Mystic Garden Collection paper pack. So it's just papers. I'm going to need some solids. And these are kind of chalkbooky looking colors. And so what I want to do is pick some kind of pastel chalk looking colors to go with it. Then lastly, I'm going to need something to go ahead and make my own die cut. So I've got some cutting dies here, and I'm going to be talking more to these once I decide. So let me clear some of this out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and cut up some of the elements, and then we're going to talk about the actual layout of the card. So I finished sketching out, this is this card, but in a sketch format. So we've got the 1, 2, 3 major elements of the card. First off, this is true to size, so it's 5 by 6.5. It's a landscape tent fold, so I've got my base card. I've got a stacked element here. It looks to be about 3 inches square, so give or take, but something, this is going to be the focal of the card. Of course, their border and their sample is actually printed on the paper, as is this edging. So I don't have that pattern on the papers I've chosen, and we're going to take a look at what we do there, and then a cluster treatment for your sentiment. And so in their case, they've got a tag and another die cut and some ribbon. We're going to do something similar here. Similar. Boy, that was tough to take out here. The other thing is, I think this looks a little busy, and I think it looks busy not because of the number of elements on there, but because everything is a pattern. So even the die cuts, little sentiment, everything has a pattern on it. So we're going to add some solid pieces. So you want to start with the base cardstock. So to create the base, you're going to need a piece that's 6.5 by 10, and you want to score it at 5 inches, and that's going to make your landscape tent fold. Now, for the edging, instead of edging, we're going to do a little matten layer. And so my first layer is going to be this piece. I want to leave an edge on it, so I cut it 1/8 of an inch short, and that gives me a 1/16 on all sides. Now it's not going to be open. You're not going to see this, so I go ahead and gut it. And I got it so that I can save this piece for something else, either in this card or another card. The other thing I want to do is I want to add another layer, because I've got so many patterns and they're so pretty, but I can go ahead and edge it, mat it again. So I've got this layer. Now I want to put this together separately because I do want to wrap a ribbon. So we're going to include all the elements that they've got in their card. And so I've cut out a piece of twine cording with the lacy border. So let's get this on here. I'll put this onto the base card, and then we'll talk about the focal. Okay, I actually stopped a little bit short, so I've got the first panel down to my card base, and I've matten layered the second panel. But I left this end open, which brings me to another good point. So I've created a stacked die cut. Let me bring in a piece of paper here. You don't really want to just totally stack this down, because you want to leave spaces so that you can move things in and out. So actually behind here, I've only got 2 little foam squares. And then even the butterfly is 2 foam squares. So if I want to move things in and around and over, I still can. You can always tuck in another foam square or add a spot of glue to adhere that down. But I wanted to position this. Excuse me. The point of this is I wanted to kind of eyeball position this before I figured out my border, and border same thing. So I've got a piece of paper that is backed by this somewhat chevron style border, and it's open so that even with the ribbon, which I've already decided I'm going to do, I'm going to slide this under and then tuck it. And also with the sentiment. So I'm going to leave this up above its mat all the way through to the sentiment stage. So let me tuck this through here, get this on, put this on, and then we're going to talk about that last little cluster, which would be the sentiment. Okay, for this cluster, I put together a couple things. So I've punched out a couple circles in different patterns and different parts of the pattern. and I've got my sentiment on a frame that's part of the same set as this frame, so similar with a little filigree and everything else. And then of course I've got my sentiment, which is beautiful in this case. And so kind of the same deal. When I glued down the strip, I still got a little room to tuck in, so I do think I'm going to tuck that and come all the way to the bottom. I think this piece is going to come up like this, and actually I could use a foam deal. It's kind of funny because you've already seen the finished piece before I've actually seen it, because I include it in the title. Anyway, I've got this, and I cut out just another little ribbon. I made a little bow out of that same twine cording and that lacy border. The only thing is I don't want it sticking out beyond my card. So let me pile this on, and then I've got one more element to look at, and that is if we're going to intertwine something into this stacked frame. Okay, so I've got my cluster for the sentiment. So 1, 2, 3, got my 3 elements, and then if I want to, which I do, I'm going to go ahead and entwine some of these pieces. So kind of soften this look a little bit, and I think that will add a lot between the lace and all the filigree. So we're going to soften that up, and all these are 2 die cuts again. And I cut one in the solid blue and then one in this pattern paper. It's actually the same paper that's back behind here. And then snipped out the little flowers to put on top. So I'm going to entwine that. Might as well go ahead and do the inside, because I always do the inside. Something on the inside anyway. But, so the first thing, I used my outie from this focal butterfly. Did that. I had a scrap piece of that lace, so why not tuck that in there. Stamped Life is Beautiful. So I got beautiful, life is beautiful. And then hope everything is going well in your corner of the world. And that's going to be how that finishes out. Of course, I always want to do a coordinating envelope, and this is just white copy paper that I just covered with a piece of that pattern paper. So I'll be back with the finished photos of this. I do want to talk about some of these elements. So the frames and these little pieces come from Crate & Craft. They're Delectables. I've got the label vine and flowering vine. Then I've got my hot off the press, or Paper Wishes, 3 butterflies and 2 shadows. I did the butterflies and 2 lacy borders. And then lastly, the sentiment comes from Tattered Lace. A bunch of sentiments, stylish sentiments, it's what it's called. And I'll probably just take a photo of this along with that. So that's that finished card, and I usually don't show more variations in my quick card, but this time I'm going to. So here's the second card I put together, and this time I did use an Artful card kit. And yeah, I apologize for that. In the intro I called them artists, but they're Artful card kit. I've got several. Actually, they have them on $2 Tuesdays over at Paper Wishes. So if you shop, you can get $2. And I like them. I recommend them for beginners because there's only 7 custom papers, so it's not overwhelming. There's plenty of die cuts to choose from, but one style, so you're not really confused. But the thing I love best is you've got inspiration. So you've got a card on the front, and you've got 3 cards on the back. So this is the Floral Fantasy set. Okay, remember I said that was a little busy, and I think what's making this busy is this piece of lace, or paper lace. So I took it off of here, and all this is die cuts. The only thing those kits don't have is these embellished buttons and ribbon, so your little sentiments. God, I gotta quit using mini glue dots. Anyway, so I've got the inside of that, and again, just kind of leftovers, kind of cutting these large toppers. And that's what I do. I don't typically take a topper for what it is. In this case, this was one piece, so I cut this inside frame from the outside. I backed it with some black paper, and I think I cut this flower from a large die that incorporated this flower. So you don't always have to use your die cuts like they are. And then the border are more die cuts. So my third card, I turned it around. So you don't always have to use the sketch as it is. Let me see, the sketch is on the other side. So if I take the sketch and I were to flip it, I come up with this card. And this is from a Lemonade Stand Artist Card Kit. So again, using all the pieces. Again, taking a really large die cut and I cut out the circle, and then I cut out the circle in that, raised it up, and backed it. So, always options. I again removed that ribbon and used my ribbon here as a border element. And then on the inside, just a couple more die cuts. So, really pretty. From here, I was thinking as I was putting all this together about taking some other card kits and other manufacturers' materials. And then I thought of this panel. And I had this panel, I had created this. This is some magic graphics. So this is digitally created. So I just made a couple layers. But I had nowhere to put her on. So she's like a steampunk kind of angel. So I just spread out the card a little bit because this was a rectangle to begin with. She's still somewhat as the focal square. So that worked. Added die cut border. Added my sentiment cluster and a dazzle. So that turned out really pretty. So same sketch, kind of incorporated what I needed it to incorporate, and it makes a really pretty card. Then lastly, I realized that I had not done my July calendar. So I went ahead and used the same design for my July calendar. So now I'm all caught up. I don't mind spending a little bit time on this. This came from my June calendar. So I usually cut it off and make myself a little note card. Anyway, I think it's a very versatile sketch, a very versatile design. I sure hope you took something with you you can use in your own card making. And I thank you for watching.